that there were data structures getting messed up again. So it needed an FSCK before it would mount one more time. So I'd do an FSCK and it would find all sorts of things that were wrong, blocks that were claimed by a whole bunch of inodes. And again, that's because some of the directory blocks were just sort of blown away by the readers. So by the time I got done, and by the time FSCK was satisfied that, okay, I've sort of recovered what I have, pretty much all of the etc directory was gone at that point. Most of it was put into that lost and found directory, but we don't know the names of anything there. It's just # and then inode number. So it'd be hard to find anything out of that anymore. So at that point, I sort of had to go back and try to look at old backups from Legolas, and maybe try to pull off the configuration information and stuff from there. But I did save all your current passwords and the list of the current students and stuff on here from that very first option that I had used, right, to do an rsync. So you do have your accounts back at this point, but the networking still isn't working right. All right. Okay, so that was too bad. But, gee, there was stuff that I did in rsync earlier on, and I got all that stuff, but in my haste, I wound up putting it on a partition that, well, it was something made for backups. But it was a Windows-type partition. So when you put stuff over there, now if I'd done tar file, it wouldn't have been a problem, but I really did do an rsync. Any file you put over there, there's no concept of ownership, so it's all owned by root. And there's no concept of group permissions or anything like that, so all the permission bits are set. So the files are there, but all the permissions are screwed up. One thing it could get right was it did have the right timestamps on them. We did preserve the timestamps from the way I did the rsync. So trying to put back a few thousand files and getting every one of the permissions right was really just kind of a non-starter as far as that goes. All right, but I didn't have the correct content, so it was worthwhile to go in there and grab some of those guys, like the password and shadow file. I can figure out what the right permissions need to be for that. So that's how we got back some of that stuff. And things that are supposed to let us do DHCP and so on, I also brought over. But apparently I haven't brought over enough stuff yet because I still have network problems with that. Okay. All right, so, and I didn't want to do a copy with the -P option. I would like to have the right dates on these files from from the last time they were changed on here. But -P preserves who the owner is, which appeared to be root, right, because of the way I backed it up, and it also tries to preserve all the permissions, which is not at all what we want. So to get some of these guys over and keep what I wanted and not have what I didn't want, there's a way you can do a CP. CP has a -preserve equals option, and you can tell which things you wanted to preserve. And in this case, I just wanted to hang on to the timestamps. The owners, whatever, didn't make sense, and the various other things didn't make sense. Like who can read, who can write, and whatever were all wrong. So I just used some CPs, but after aliasing it to this. So I kept the timestamps and didn't get the other stuff. All right. All right, so being generally paranoid here, once I put a few things in place, then I cloned that clone, essentially, on another one of these little drives that I had, some of which didn't really take, and I wound up discovering I had some drives that needed to be thrown away, that were sitting around in my office. We'll do that. All right, but once I get a clone, then I can fiddle with that a little bit more. Right? So I also installed a few other operating systems and things on here to change things around. Now the original setup on the disk was a small partition here, which was going to be /boot. Right? That was SDA1. And then a relatively small partition for /. Right? That was the SDA2. And then I had a pretty big thing here for /home. And then swap space here was SDA4. So if I wanted to put another operating system on here, I kind of had to crunch things down a bit. And there was plenty of room in home, so that's where I was going to put the new stuff. But so first I had to use gparted to change that a little bit. And because you can put what's on there was 4 primary partitions, because that was enough under the circumstances. But now if we even want to have a 5th one, we can't do it that way. You can't go more than 4 primaries. So one of the primaries, usually the last one then, is going to become an extended partition, a container for a bunch of other things. Right. So with gparted on one of my clones here, I basically had it shrink/home by a bit to give me some room down at the end. And that still was SDA3, but shrunk, so it's got all your home directory information on there. And then I threw away this 4th partition after shrinking the 3rd. And then we put an extended partition, so SDA4 is an extended partition. Right? And that's the holder, essentially, for other things that you want to make. And then we just put a few guys in there. I did an SDA5, is going to hold a copy of Mint. By the way, Mint 18 is come out a while back, and about the end of the semester there will be an 18.1 around. And that's also a long-term distribution that goes till 2021. If you're thinking of doing Mint, don't do Mint 17. That's what we're going into. Mint 17 ends support at 2019. It's been around for so this guy basically a full 5 years. So I put that on there, and then SDA6 became the new swap area at the very end of that. All right. Now, there's when you do clones, there's a little bit of a problem in for example, the fstab file, the file system table. There's various different ways to even specify, which partition goes where. I want SDA3 to be /home, SDA1 to be /root, so on. So the way we've been used to doing it is you'd say you have SDA3 and it's home, and it's an EXD partition itself. You just say when you want to FSCK it, you do automatic FSCK. But it could be, as I mentioned in here, perhaps you shuffle drives around a little bit, and you have a different guy from SDA1, but you still want this to be home, but now it's SDB3 or maybe SDC3 or something like that, and you got to go and adjust your file system there. So one of the other ways you can put things in fstab is by the unique ID, essentially, for the disk. And that's really the way most of the distributions now would likely be able to do that. But the problem is, what happens when you clone a disk? You've got another disk which supposedly has the same things on it, but now those are different partitions. Just because you copy the information over doesn't mean you get the same UID. Now, you can't change those things and make them be whatever desired string you like them to be. But then if you do that, that means if you're in trouble if you try to take those 2 disks with that same UID somewhere on them and put them into the same machine, you can't tell the 2 things apart. So for my purposes here, it was actually better to sort of do this sort of thing. But the will, in the clone, it would still be SDA3. I wouldn't have to worry about changing UIDs. Alright, so that's, even when you make a clone, there's various things that have to be adjusted. Alright, so that's what was described. Anyway, I also have to be able to prove those things. And we'll talk a little bit about how proving happens, and I've got more information here in the file about how that goes on. What happens when you first boot up the machine, with the first 512 bytes, there's a tiny little program which drags in a slightly bigger thing. And that's the thing called stage 1. And typically it's stored under /boot/grub/stage1. That's a stage 2 file. Stage 1 is the first thing that comes in. But you don't know how to parse things here. Only in 512 bytes you can't describe how to go through an entire EXT file system or an MS-DOS file system or FAT or NGFS file systems or whatever. So what you really have to do at that point, that little program just drags in things block by block. You have to say, go grab block 1231 and put that in the lowest part of memory, and then block 1399 stick that right on top of it. So all that stuff has to be hardwired in. So the little program brings stuff in like that to get the next stage going. At that point, you've got something that can bring up that little menu and whatever for you to, well, actually, you don't quite have the menu just yet. But that's the first stage that you do to get you along the way. All right. So you need to, if you've got a new drive, probably those blocks got put in different places. It's not blocked whatever, except if you look, it's probably got moved to a different spot. So we need to have different directions in those first 512 bytes stored in the master boot record to do this right. And we can have grub do that itself. If you've got the machine booted up here, you can run the grub command here. And you get basically this little prompt here, grub greater than to the space, and you can tell it what to do. And in this case, what we need to do to get this to work is ask it, where is it going to find this path here, stage 2 essentially. And it tells me actually two answers, unfortunately that's split across the page here, HD00, and as a second answer, it was HD01. Now, I guess I didn't mention what I have done on this clone here. I told it to, hey, leave boot alone, don't do anything with that, leave home alone. But here we can put in a new version of Caesar and replace the old one of the other experiments that I thought. And just put everything here. So there is a /boot directory here already, and it's not empty like it was in the original one. It really does have a grub subdirectory and whatever underneath. So there is in this directory a boot, /boot/grub/stage2. And from earlier on, the previous thing also had one underneath here. And this told us about both of these. So the HD0 thing here, that says that is the first drive, so counting from 0, right, which was SDA. And it tells you what partition it found it on, the 0th partition, which gets labeled SDA1. So it said it found a boot grub stage 2 here, and that next line up at the top there says it also found one in here. That's still SDA, that's the first 0, but now it's 0, 1 on that bit there. So it was the next partition again. It found one there as well. So we want to know, hey, which one do we want to load? Well, if I really had sliced stuff here, I don't want that one. It was for an old system that got overwritten. So I wanted to use that one. So we say, hey, the root, where you're going to find stuff, where we're going to mount / is, and where I'm going to find this file here, is first disk, second partition, SDA2. Right? So we tell it, hey, that's the root of where you're going to find it. And then we tell it, hey, set things up. Now I could have said HD0, 1 to put it in the boot record. For this partition, each individual partition has its own boot record stop, but there's 512 bytes set aside for that. That's not what we wanted to do here. We wanted to put it at the absolute very beginning of the file, the 512 byte file, the disk drive, put it right at the very beginning, because that's where BIOS looks for things to start on. So I only said HD0, something like that. But that says put it in the master. So for it to be able to do that, you have to set things up, get all the addresses right. It needs to make sure it can figure out where stage 1 is, and it looks not for stage 1 up here, but under the place where we told it, the root was, where this stuff was supposed to live. And it did find it there. Right? And it needed this stage 2, the one we explicitly looked for. And since this was an ext2 file system, it also needed one of the many sub-things here in this guy, right? The thing which says how to read the ext2 type file system, which also works for the ext3 and the ext4. Right, so it found all of them, and then it was ready to go. So then what it needed to actually do here is then put that smarts, those extra blocks which are basically routines for how to deal with directories in the x32 file systems and follow the INOs to the appropriate pointers to get stuff. And embed that, that's what I'm saying here, it's going to do it, embed into the stage 1. So this way, the stage 1 thing that it has, which our very first stage of the master read record starts reading, is going to have now instructions for dealing with the ext2 file system. It's got the routines it needs to be able to parse it. And then we have to tell it to pull that in by hand. Go to this block and bring this in, and this block and bring that in, and this one bring it in, and so on. And as long as we don't move those guys, as long as those guys stay in the same place, it will bring in the appropriate blocks and now have a bigger program that's allowed to run. And at that point, you can then start getting the things that you want. We can then run stage 2 by actually following this path. At that point, when we're done with this stage 1 thing here, when it's going to boot, it can go to slash, figure out where that is, find the directory called root, find the directory called grub, find the file called stage 2, and load that thing in there. And then that guy can do further work on the system. In particular, it looks for your grub.configuration CFG file, your configuration file, again by parsing the file system, and bring that in, and that's how you get that menu that gives you the different choices to do that. All right. So basically, that's how that works. And again, what you want is to know that hey, that succeeded. Was able to do that. All right. So that gives you maybe a slightly less fuzzy idea of what actually happens when you grub this thing, which is mainly what we're going to be talking about in Lab 9. That's a nice bit about it. I'd much rather we have this problem right at the end of the semester after it was done grading, but otherwise this was fairly reasonable time to do it to fits with what we're actually talking about in class. All right, so here I mentioned a little bit about all the stuff I've been saying is basically laid out in this area. Okay. So on another one of these clones that I had, the grub thing didn't quite work because I didn't really have a viable system sitting there. So at that point, I tried something else. I did this thing about installing Mint 18 essentially. And when we did that install, this guy then put up the appropriate grub information from a boot grub stage 1, whatever, on this partition. And among the things that it does, as you may recall seeing from Lab 7 here, it looks for other operating systems and said, hey, there's a version of CZ up here. I'm going to add that to your list of memories, many entries that we can do as well. Actually, that was another way to get back to that. Now, various other things happened to me along the way here. Since I was trying this with a bunch of different disk drives and whatever, I brought these things home here. At one point, I plugged in one of these old drives, and basically the machine went dead. Let's take that drive out. Turn it on again. Still does not work. And after I had done that, I moved it over to actually Legolas and the partners of Legolas and plugged it in there. They got the same behavior. Nothing happened. And after removing the drive, Legolas did not want to start up. So it looked like I just killed one of my own machines and also killed the main hardware that we've been using for this semester. So, things were just going downhill further and further. It was about at the point where I was expecting the sharks to show up. One step away from that as far as I could tell. So I went to bed. And the next morning, both machines would be fine, but I sure haven't had the guts to try to take that drive and plug it in somewhere again. This thing gets so that was the scariest part of the movement. Definitely it's been a whole lot of fun. All right. Any questions about what's been happening so far? So right now, I think I have most of the information, although I'm not sure what I can recover the mail, because that's under that partition, lost a lot of stuff. You might be able to do that there, but probably has a whole lot that you care about there, other than, your current assignment that you did for some of that stuff. Yes.
So what was backed up? Just the stuff from 2013, or was there no other backups?
Well, I do have some older backups there, but I'm trying to stick with the earliest ones. But if I go to that backup from 2015, it doesn't have any of your account information and stuff like that. So I can grab that at least from the other drive. And it kind of is a matter of trying to figure out, hey, what version is usually running at the time, or these files we have and whatever. And so I've mostly been reconstructing things with little hints from what I've seen. And I'm getting most of it doing the same, except for the network stuff. But now that Legolas is on the network, it expects to be on. So I'm not sure I'm answering the question.
I'm just wondering, why aren't there at least yearly, monthly, weekly backups of the entire thing?
Well, they used to do that for us, but with budget cuts and whatever, that doesn't happen. We used to do this over the network, and we have big drives where all these things, and it's basically been up to us for a while. I thought I had in the machine a second drive where I was doing our sync from one to the other, and there was indeed a second drive in there. So there will be one that works, and we're going to this, but I sure don't want to go through this again. Other yeah, the XKCD things are really good. We've got several of them screwed through the notes here, and there's some extra white space on it. But you spend a whole day going through those started at the very beginning, it's got a few thousand of them now. But the first ones are, just pencil drawings with no actual cartoon there. It's on, like lined paper from high school or whatever. But eventually we started actually doing cartoons and all right. Okay, well, like I say, since I didn't have time to go into what I was going to talk about today, we'll start talking about some of the stuff in Lab9, because it really does jive with that last thing we did with Legolas loaders that we've been talking about. All right, so when we get to Lab9, again, most of this you will be able to use in an isolated machine. I don't think we have to drag a bunch of stuff on the net. But you should, when you're done with Lab 8, have all this dash CS470 guys that we have built, and we put on your board. You can chicken that actually try to reboot the machine using those binaries just yet. But we should have them in place, and you also built CTWM, but didn't actually install it. We're going to see what happens before it's installed and what comes after it's installed. A little bit further along. And then everybody will eventually do that, probably, assuming that we get the network up and we're using it all the time. Otherwise, we're going to just cut back on that stuff through Google Science. Alright, so if you've got that in place, then to actually use this new kernel, you need Grub, that new menu that comes up at the beginning to know about this stuff to be able to do it. Now, if you're really good with Grub, you can type in by hand all the gibberish you need to make it boot, but there's utilities to figure out what that gibberish is and save it in a file for you, so you want to go that route. Alright, so the brand unified bootloader is where the name comes from there. That replaces what used to be the Linux loader here, Virus. It's the main facility for boot. And pretty much everyone is using Grub 2 these days, so this lab does stuff for Grub 2. So there's big differences between the two. Grub 2 is, it seems nicer, but it's also more complicated. Just got a lot more capability. Alright, so there is a file for doing this. It's boot grub2 grub.cfg. Now, if we had been using the old version with the earlier grub, it would have been under the grub, not grub 2, and it would have a name like this, and then you got OS2, short for list rather than first, essentially, and a list of different systems you see. And they didn't spell it all the way out because they wanted this to be something where you could put the Linux kernel and grub and whatever on little floppy disks, which are all formatted as MS-DOS type things. So you really are restricted to 8 dot, really essentially fine. And that's why they just use CFG essentially for the config file, because they can't get the whole kernel on floppy do things that way. Nowadays we don't do that. You probably have a USB stick which doesn't have those restrictions. Yeah, once upon a time we had soft pointers in there, which you can basically see right here. They would point to the preferred versions of the initial RAM disk and the virtual machine on Linux here, the Z on the end is got compressed. That's compressed file that gets uncompressed on the fly, and then it's put into the memory. Save the disk, and particularly to make it fit on a floppy drive. Okay, so those things are just soft links, and Grub 2, as far as I can tell, doesn't use those things at all, but they're sort of there for package compatibility or something, in case somebody utility would be expecting to find those. So here's the sort of things that we should have there now, and again, things are probably different. I think people are reporting they're getting instead of dash desktop, dash defaults here, and almost certainly have different numbers than the ones I'm showing here. Just adjust Now, some syntax for file expansion that we might want to look at before these curly bracket guys here. You may recall that we have stuff like ls square bracket a, b, c, star. And this matches exactly one of these 3 characters. So this will give you all the file names that either start with an A, or start with a B, or start with a C, followed by a but there's also this notation here where you use curly brackets, and you can give it specific long strings that you would like, separated by commas. So we're looking for files that either begin with vmnews or begin with init.id, followed by 0 more characters, and end in either TOP, like this guy and this guy, or 470, like that guy and that guy. So you wind up finding those particular files. So the curly brackets sometimes are very, very useful for specifying exactly the things that you want. You can do more than just single letters as you can with the square brackets. All right, so there's various other kernels that are on dash default, which are things that we get this semester. The physical address extension kernels, which makes more sense under a 32-bit machine, I guess. Okay. So the way we had it now is somewhere in your drug configuration file they were unspecific like this with an ID. It would follow that soft link and come up with whatever happened to be pointing to. And in my case, since I'm looking at that particular guy. So in Grub 2, they really do write everything out and not accept those sort of defaults. Now, if you look at the sizes of the things, like we had seen on the last page, right, the ones for CS470 are a little bit smaller because we have a kernel that's got not quite as much stuff in it. We don't have all the hooks for the key standing stuff. So they're almost the same, but not quite. Right. Now we're going to wind up changing this file, so you know it's Lab9. It's going to remind you about some really important things. I like this file. Check that in to begin with before you start messing with it. And then you can restore it if you screw up the editing of some of these other files. So check it in, but then also copy it to your home directory if you want. pull some stuff out of there and change it a little bit. All right. Now, this is where it is on our particular system using Susie here, but some other places put it in different spots. If they were using the edge root process here, often it goes into root EFI. That's the extended firmware interface subdirectory. So you may have to look around a little bit. And again, Rob can maybe tell you where some things live, or you can just do a brute force find command somewhere down under /boot where you have a bunch of these guys and just ask for and it'll report to the account system. But tell me where you see it. Alright. Now the guy that you just copied over to somebody's home directory here called Brad, which is the whole file, which we're going to tear down. But it does say up at the top that, hey, this thing gets automatically generated. You make any changes here, they're going to go away. The next time somebody tries to tell you how to rebuild this menu. So it's an automatic rebuild. And the older Grub really did change that by hand each time you wanted to change. You know what the utility is messing. That's one of the complications. We have various files which tell it how to build this file. And so that's basically what we have to look for. Files that tell us how to build that file rather than that file itself. Alright, so we're going to take one of the stanzas out of there, change it just the way we want it, and then try to get the Grub configuration utility to pay attention to it. Alright, so go down to basically that line. Each one of these standard ones has labels at the end of 3 pounds. Single pound makes it a common, but this is the same. So this is stuff that got generated by this particular file under grub.d. There's a bunch of different files underneath there for you. One is to pull up the main routing system, which is what you care about. And there's other ones to look for other operating systems that are out there and fail-safe entry and things like that. Alright, so if you've got your cursor sitting here, basically you want to take the stanza just below this one. So with your cursor here, you do a delete 1G, and that will get everything here. So the D command, D perhaps you use to deletes an entire line. But D can take any movement specifier you would like. DW would delete the next word. So if your cursor was, say, right here, and you did a DW, it would delete from here to the beginning of the next word. If you want to keep that space, you would say DE to delete to the end of the word rather than to the beginning of the next word. So D can do lots of stuff like that. You can do open curly bracket to go delete the paragraph up above this line. In our case, we're going to tell it delete to wherever this takes us. We're telling it to go to line number 1. Specify line 1 and the G thing. That's a movement to line 1. So we're going to delete wherever the cursor would want to go. That gets rid of all the stuff up at the top of this file easily. Rather than having to get rid of it line by line or paragraph by paragraph. Alright. So, as it turns out, one of the things you'll find once you get rid of that stuff a few lines down here is something like this. We're going to insert mod ext2. This is for the kernel that knows that one of the things it needs to do for this particular operating system is to glue on the module that understands the ext2 file system. So that's what we see before we start parsing things further down. That's what that guy is all about. Alright. Next, so it's going to find all this stuff that's get those files. We talked about this a little bit in the last lab when we said what the initial RAM disk is actually for. The thing was that they're going to insert that module, I need to be able to find it on the /lib modules, blah, 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 to get that. That thing that I'm bringing in is to help us parse these ext2 file systems. But in order to do that, I have to get some stuff off of the ext2 file system. So just like I was talking about here when we were looking at what Grub did in that legacy recovery stuff. Grub has to set things up and grab out the blocks of information that are in that file. Now, how can it find that? That's in some file along the way. It really does have to look on the disk and say, grab this block, grab that block, etc. With no regard to the file system structure itself. It's just supposed to get file. So, you can move this file someplace else and get rid of the old one, and now you build a grub essentially. It's still pointing at where those old blocks are, and the stuff it blocks isn't there anymore. Even if you give it the right name, if it's something that's been moved or rewritten or whatever, you got to rerun grub and make it find a new place where all those blocks live. All right. Okay, so to get us started here, we do have hard-coding the appropriate stuff, the exact block that we want off of the disk into the grub bucket. There's the correct partition that blocks within that partition. Endpoint. Alright. So you look at that particular line, but again, you try to how to edit this piece of code to get it to do that. Alright. So what's on line 1 now, that you removed everything else, including that comment, it's basically something that looks like this. So when you enter here, that's one of those lines that you see when you read stuff up. It's the title that we're going to have on the top when it's starting the book. And that's the name that you would give to it. Now, we don't have our own little name for the new guy that we're putting in there. We're going to call it OpenCZ 12.3-CS470. Once they go in and add a few extra characters before that, so it's important. Alright. Now this thing here, eventually way the heck out here, there's a curly bracket, which explains this entire, which delimits this entire thing. Some closing curly bracket, we want to find that particular guy. So the easiest way to find that is to go to the end of the line. The easiest way to do that, rather than spacing over there, just say $sign. It'll put it on this. And then, with exactly 2 characters, so $sign gets into here, percent sign will tell you what matches up with this, and it will immediately drop about 17 lines down through the top. So they're going to cross down the closed curly bracket. And we want to keep that closed curly bracket, so you don't delete that line, but go down 1, and then delete the rest of the file. And we can do that similar to what we had done before. Plain old G with no number in front of it takes you to the last line of the file, whatever it is. So DG deletes from wherever your person is right now to the end of the file. So if you've done it right, you should have exactly 17 lines. Control G will tell you information about your file, including the lines here. Done that, should look pretty good. Top line should look like this. Bottom line should be just a curly bracket right by it. So save that part somewhere. Alright. Now we want to do some other data changes as well. Maybe we'll use to tell what things included at any given time. So down near the bottom, you're going to have this thing here, which says, hey, this is the initial line disk we're supposed to use, where all the fancy instructions are for these languages and things that we want to run at the beginning. All right. So we have a new guy that's a little bit different. That was the one for the old copy of the kernel. We gave ours a new name. It didn't end with dash desktop and maybe dash default and one of those other things that we mentioned earlier. But whatever it is, after the dash, put in CS470. And also, move the one for the itself. Directions here. Oh, actually, yeah, I guess I did. That's one of the changes we want to make. It's actually 3 changes. So you could move your cursor individually. It's easier to just do it this way. I can do a color too. do these sort of commands, you need to, so that's a misprinting the notes. You got to do a colon before it makes sense of these other things. So in DI, don't do an insert note or anything like that. Start with a colon and then do the percent as desktop CS470. You got to do this with that in the I think I already have one or two things in the file for Alright, so percent here, normally you can say stuff like 1,5, like just make changes to lines 1 through 5. But you can say make changes to everything, first through last essentially. So percent sign is a shorthand for that. First through last. So everywhere, the first occurrence on any line in the file where you see the word desktop or the desktop, the default, turn it into CS470. So I should get the, and I think we have 3 or more, it actually tells you how many changes. There's only 1 or 2, it doesn't matter. I think there's lots of changes in the file. So, all right. Okay, so if we were trying to clone something like this and do something a little bit differently and modify this, often there's more stuff that has to be modified. The root of where the file system is may be in a different place. The stanza for this mint guy that I put in here has to describe SBA5, not SBA2. Whereas the one for Susie would have been up here at the SBA2. So if you're doing something like that, I may have to have different stuff. But we're talking about 2 guys that are sitting in, I guess in our case it's SBA7 or SBA8 or something. But they're side by side. It's in the same partition. There's 2 colors in this exact same operating system. So there's no need to change that. Similarly, the zoom will tell you where your swap area is, and that's where you want to get them. So maybe you have 2 different versions of an operating system and have 2 different swap areas. Look at the 3 or 4 swap stuff with someplace else. Right, but for us, they're all exactly the same. So as it turns out, there's very, very little to make this new guy from the old guy. Okay. All right, now search for splash in here, and you're going to find something like this. Splash equals silence. And there's also the word quiet in there. And we're just going to get rid of those. You can put it both in there, actually, if you wish. But if you just take those out, basically you'll see stuff happens. And under Susie, you'll get this visible green screen, unless you hit F2, and then you see line by line what's happening with the boot. So if you tell it not to be quiet like this, then automatically you get to see that. So when you boot your system, see the black screen with white characters go by, you know you're getting the CS470 thing. If you are seeing that green screen, then you know you're putting those other standards that I'm going to show you. I believe what's happening. That's another little visual cue as to who you actually get. Okay. All right, well, we're not quite done editing that yet, but you can take a look in this little file here and sort of see what's actually doing. And so it's not just a bunch of lines that go into a file. What it's doing is it's looking around in the partition, seeing if it can find something that looks like an operating system. And in particular, there's in say this partition here, underneath the FC, there's an LSB, it's underscore, I don't think it's complete, but it tells you the file system type. In there it says it's CD 12.2. And under min, it says min 17.1. So it looks up for these guys here, and that's how it knows, hey, this is the name of this particular thing. And it tries to look through the root directory to find out where the kernel moves, etc. And it takes all these things out and puts them in the string. So it's not just lines that are blatantly copied, it actually really is a shell script. And you're writing for automatically. So to go around, look at things, and build a file out of those words. So we need to have something that's going to build a file with exactly those 17 lines that we've got it. That's what we have to do to make that work. It's an executable script, but not just stuff we want to put in the file. Now, it turns out it's fairly easy to do that with what's called a here is document. So up at the top of the file here, we're going to say, hey, we're going to run sh, I don't know why they don't use dash, but we're using an actual sh here, with the dash e option here. We have to do a fast startup essentially for these things here. And then we'll have a little echo statement here, as you'll see as we build that configuration file, rub.cfg, and we run the appropriate utility. It'll say, hey, I'm doing Linux 10 here or whatever, and I'm doing the file systems that come out, and for each one that it finds, it gives you a little entry. So you see as it builds file, all the different operating systems that it's finding. So our little echo command here is to just show them. Now this is going to wind up going into a file here, so I want to start with a pound sign, so it doesn't look like a directory, it really does look like a comment. And our comment is our custom CS470 Lab9. And in the line underneath that, we're going to tell it, hey, run the cat command. And normally you give it the name of the file here with a single less than. Two less than's in a row means something to most shells. And basically that turns it into a here is document. This thing says, hey, don't go read from some other file. Read from this file from here on down. And keep reading line by line until you see that BQ combination of characters. So again, usually you want something really weird there that couldn't possibly show up in the file and you can use this if you want some extra stuff. Right. So we'll do that, and then we put our 17 lines after that, and then down at the very last line, after that curly bracket, put in our keyword here, EOF, to tell it to stop reading. So at that point, you'll have 17 lines plus these three, plus that one at the bottom. You should have a 21-line file when you get done. And now you have something which will generate exactly that stanza that we created. Now, if you look underneath here, you can find a bunch of files like that, the one we had just seen with the 10 on it. Underneath etc, there's a 05 something or other for various headers at the beginning. There's time limits here. There's another one for 20, looks for some other things. 30 is to look for some other operating systems on there, so it might find Windows and some of those. It's really not good if you keep that on your drive. And then 40 is any custom things that you want there, so there's similar name like that, 40 underscore custom. So take a look at those things and get a sense of what all the names look like. Okay. So we're going to give it a similar name. We don't want this to be the very top entry that shows up. We're going to put it right underneath the one with the 10. Because it does an essentially dictionary order. So the 05 guy, whatever, comes first, then the 10 guy, and now we're going to put the 11 guy right underneath that before they get to 20 underscore something else. So copy this 21-line file you have into that. And then look at what it says in the region. And I believe you're going to have to change the permissions of this thing. I don't quite remember how that is, but basically you look up and it says what's going to happen. If it turns out this README file, for example, is not supposed to have a bunch of directions that you're still working. So how do you know not to look at that? I'm pretty sure if I remember right, it was permissions that do that. So look at the ownership you got for this thing compared to the other ones, and make it look like the 10 underscore thing. So you can find out exactly what to do with the README, or you can probably refer what to do by looking at how it works and so on. Right. So from that, again, question marks, various problems for the client. Another thing here, if I had a .v file here or something checked in, that probably also be marked as an executable file. And then when this utility runs, it's going to mess with all the executable files it finds. That would not be good. We presumably have an RCS subdirectory, and the .v files are down there, which is not where the thing that makes the configuration file ends up looking. And it looks in this web directory, not subdirectory. Okay, so now we can actually run that command, which what it does is it goes into this directory here, runs each of these little scripts. Actually, it also gets you some other stuff done first. But it will do that and create a new file. And when it gets done, and how soon when it's done, then it blocks the whole damn thing out to the screen, and you get to see what your configuration looks like. Now, it's a long file, it's going to get out fast. Maybe you'll see the new ones. Alright, so watch that happen, and then if you're brave and you check in that file, right, we'll do this thing with the -O option. Just tell it make config and blot it out to the screen. Say, put the output into the grub config. And all you'll see coming to the screen are little announcements about which file systems it is, or which operating systems it have found showing up on the screen, and that's it. But silently, it will have overwritten that file. And again, if you do an RCS diff, you should see that you've got a new stanza now with your thing. And actually, it shows up twice. Because that other kernel is something that it found while it was looking for operating system. It doesn't just look for one operating system and pick one kernel. If you've got several things in that root directory, it'll give you the option of being able to do every single one. Right, but those things are set up in the normal way. They give you the green screen if you chose that. So we added our own here that's going to have our particular titles and stuff. And to make it a little easier to find. Okay, so it's found under that Linux script here when we're looking for kernels on this particular operating system. All right, so cross your fingers and you can reboot essentially on this. So when the screen comes up now, the highlighted first entry should be the only one, typical OpenSUSE. And it's a good thing to make that the default, right? Because what if our new kernel doesn't work? It's just a matter of rebooting again, right? Choose the default, which is back in this. Okay. Right, so we get a bunch of other things here, Windows and whatever further down, but underneath this, because that little line that we put in is this one. The OpenSUSE name, and I think advanced options for the OpenSUSE, and then our particular thing. Alright, so what if it doesn't work though? What if you do something really bad and go to the kernel, or you misnamed one of those files and it can't find the initial RAM disk and so on? Like it says in the directions here, not a bad idea to double check all that before you do this. But if not even the first kernel you had, which presumably didn't change on there, comes out, if nothing seems to be working at this point, you go back to the installation list and pick the recovery option. And that lets you do some stuff. In particular, like mount the file systems, you can run that grub thing to get things set up for the design and probably work. But generally, I'm not sure that's happened in the group in the last several years. So that's probably this CloneZilla thing that I had seen. That's some stuff that's mostly just for cloning. There's some interesting things. There's lots and lots of utilities on it, which if you do a lot of this stuff, you may want to do that burn that little list. I can't imagine you needing it for what to do. All right. So take a look at the other things that you have before you just boot here. Right? There is another option in there saying advanced options for OpenSUSE. If you open up that guy, you'll see different things that you can do. Fail-safe options, for example, where they make sure that no fancy graphics are being used. You just have a nice, simple VGA terminal. set here. We're not going to try to resume from the swap area just in case that's been messing up. And so it makes it simple. That's one of the entries you have. We also have that CS470 kernel. Okay. And similarly, if Mint had more than one kernel, which you might get if you've done enough updates, etc., you get a newer version of the kernel. Usually it doesn't throw away the old. It'll give you the option of moving off the old kernel or moving off the newer kernel. So all those guys would like to be in there as well. But once you check that out and see the sort of things that are in there, then you might even want to compare it later on to what's in that config file that we just built. You should see all of those lines in there. This entry, sub entry, whatever, to simulate these different things. All right, then try to boot your real guide that you created. And if that works, then you're a little happy with it. So you can pass the major miles. Now to figure out if you're running the right thing, you can run the new message command here to tell you everything that happened as it moves it up. But you really don't want to see all these lines, just do the first 10 there. And it should report something with a dash CS470 on the end of it, otherwise it would go. And you probably already knew this because you're getting that black screen with white lines scrolling by running the goofy links. Alright, similarly, if you use uname with the dash R option here, it should tell you, what kernel you've got. And it should end in dash CS470. So someday when I'm capable of creating this lab, that's the kind of thing I'll be looking for. Okay. Alright, so in NCMOTP, we can update this and you can put in the name of your new kernel. So you're doing the output of the uname-a or whatever rather than the top line. So now you have a different top line of the kernel. Okay. Here I talked a little bit about that forming stuff that we have done. If you just move all this stuff out of this drive, probably not going to boot on that drive. You do have to run grub. Alright. That's a good way to do that if you've got more than one operating system on there. You'll use your other operating system that you got grub on it, working properly, boot things up, boot up this other guy. And then from that guy, you could run your grub utility and get it fixed up. And then things would should go. Okay. Alright, now you could have done some of this by just editing that grub config file, and it got made by that utility a little while back. But the problem with doing that is those are temporary changes. And next time anyone runs that thing, they're just going to overwrite that whole file with all the little changes. And that's what we had to do back when it was regular grub rather than grub 2. Right, but now with grub 2, we put some of the changes that we want to run into these other little files here, and then we start doing that the whole time. And the other thing that could happen if you would downloaded a new kernel on one of the updates here, it's going to run your grub-make config on that new kernel. It's going to get the new guy in place and do your new default kernel. And at that point, whatever other information you have is indeed going to get overwritten. Alright, so we edit the stuff below the grub.b directory as we have just seen. And we also edit etc default grub. That's got some information about basic setup of the system. So you can get it if you want. You can put up a nice pretty picture behind your the different operating systems that you can boot up. There's typically you get a black and white screen or something like that, or I guess it's green one is what you get with CZ right now. But you can change those pictures and whatever, and the lines are here that let you do that. Right now we're only going to change one line. At the very bottom of the file, there's this guy here, and take out the pound sign. That means you're going to essentially out of your speaker when it's ready to do its thing. So the menu is up also wanted to have default equals saved up at the top of the file, and that's probably what you've got right now. That's all that is in the file. But it says grub default equals something else, can you say? I believe that's good. Alright, now that's one of the files, we just edited one of the files that grub2 make config pays attention to when it makes the config file. And you have to figure out what you need to do in order to make it pay attention to this new change. So you really do get the Alright. So we'll work that out, and then we can do things like this. We can tell it to grub2 set default, that's a command you can run as root, and tell it which stanza you want to actually boot at a given time. Alright, so we set the default to 2. We do have a command line, but I'm overriding some files that can take care of that stuff for us. We look at that saved value, because of what we said earlier, and then just automatically do that, unless somebody tells it different. Up until now, the default was going to be to run that very, very first line. But now it's going to run the stuff on line 3. First line was the original kernel, the second one was the advanced options, and line 3 is our kernel. And this should have it on line 3. Then it starts at 0, which is probably going to say 2 to get line 3. Now, at home, if you were going to do something like this, and you normally want to do Windows or whatever, figure out what clause that is, and set your default to be Windows command, unless you want something else. Something you could do there. Again, if you were using Suzy, but I don't recommend that you use Suzy. You'd be better off using Mint. But since it's grub2, it should have a similar set of options. Okay. All right, well, probably a good stopping place here. We're off on a slightly different topic here. We're going to do the kernel and stuff again, but I'll do that on a different day. Any last minute questions before we break off? Again, if you came in late, the mail directories are not back there yet on Legolas. Don't count on that particular home directory being there. I've got several different disks with their home directories on it, and maybe later a different disk will get plugged in there. So don't put anything on your home directory on Legolas. Make sure it's there, and next week we'll have